With WrestleMania 41 firmly in our rearview mirror, which would actually be right here if I'm driving, and WrestleMania 42 firmly in the future, today on WrestleJuice, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at what I'm predicting will be the card for WrestleMania 42. It's not necessarily like a firm prediction. It's more like a fantasy prediction. It's like some stuff that I think might be cool, some shit that might really make sense, and some actual predictions as to where we're going to be. Here's the thing, man. This roster is expanding like exponentially. And so finding a way to narrow down WrestleMania 42 to 14 matches while trying to put everybody on the card that's relevant, considering there are some major call-ups on the way, some people recently debuted, there were some people who couldn't make Mania for a variety of reasons, including injuries, or in the case of Bayley, and I think even Sami Zayn, just sort of, I don't know, being written out for storyline reasons or whatever. All right, first up, the Wyatt 6. They were supposed to be at WrestleMania this year, but apparently there was like an injury to, I think, Bo Dallas or something. I forget the exact reporting on it. They were supposed to have a match against Judgment Day, but instead they decided to push Wyatt 6 stuff until after WrestleMania. Apparently they're going to be involved with the Alexa Bliss stuff, whatever that's going to be. So at next year's WrestleMania, I've got the Wyatt 6 back in action as a faction against some form of a new House of Black. Aleister Black just made his return to SmackDown, and they could do like a solo deal between Aleister Black and Uncle Howdy, Bo Dallas, but I feel like they're going to want to fit people on the card. Given that they're both kind of spooky characters, I think it's natural for them to have a protracted feud at some point, and I think it'd be really fun to see because they're all very creative people. So I think this is something that people would like to see, maybe even at WrestleMania with some razzle-dazzle entrances. Who exactly would be in Aleister Black's faction? I don't know. I didn't get that far in this. Just some version. Whoever is cool didn't make it to the card. They're going to be Aleister Black's faction, I guess. Let's move on because this next match I think you guys are going to like. It's going to be Rey Mysterio and his son, Dom Mysterio, versus the Lucha Brothers. Now, of course, right now, Dom Mysterio is starting to get some pretty big babyface reactions. You saw at WrestleMania when he won the Intercontinental Championship. Crowd loved it. They just like the guy because he's funny, kind of a prick, puts in good work, and now they've turned, so they're like, oh, we like Dom instead of we're going to be booing him relentlessly. Well, you got to keep him as the same character. He's still kind of a jerk, and he reluctantly maybe helps make a save for his dad if he ends up in a feud with Penta or Phoenix or whatever. Regardless, you get the bad guys, Lucha Brothers, like you turn them bad, and then you got the Mysterios. I think people really like to see that reunion. And then you have them fight each other at WrestleMania. It could be a really fun match. You get some shades of what's been going on recently with like Dom Mysterio winning that title because Penta was in that match as well. And so there's like shades of like a rematch kind of thing. And then you put Rey Mysterio in there with his son. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think a lot of people like to see that. All right, next up for kind of like the future of the WWE women's division, we've got the Intercontinental Championship on the line. Lyra Valkyria, maybe she'll lose it and win it back a couple times between now and next year's WrestleMania. And Tiffany Stratton, who, yes, I know was in the match against Charlotte for the WWE women's title. But sometimes when somebody is so young and they get that top title, once they lose it, they'll drop down to like a mid-card title before going back up to the world title again. In this case, Tiffany Stratton might be challenging for the Intercontinental Championship going into next year's WrestleMania. By the way, with the draft coming up, who knows what stars are going to end up on what brand. So I kind of paid very loose attention to what brands they're on right now. So it's like, I don't know, maybe Tiffany will move to Raw. Maybe the Intercontinental Championship will move to SmackDown. I don't know. But in this case, I've got two people who I think are going to be sort of the future foundational pieces of the women's division in a match at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental Championship. Let's talk about more future pieces of WWE's foundation. I'm talking about Carmella Hayes. I have him in a match against Randy Orton. At some point, they got to start pushing Carmelo. He won the Andre this year, so he wasn't even on the WrestleMania card. They got to start pushing the guy. At some point, they got to start pushing people who aren't in their 40s already, and Carmella Hayes fits that perfectly. So I have him in a match against Randy Orton, which he actually gets a win on at WrestleMania to kind of propel him to where he needs to be, kind of climbing up to at least like the mid-card title scene. Next up for the Women's United States Championship. Now, yes, I know one of the complaints this year at WrestleMania, of course, was there are too many multi-person matches. Well, that's not going to change next year, simply because there are too many people on the roster. So I've got a fatal four-way for the United States Championship. Of course, earlier I had a one-on-one bout for the Intercontinental Championship. I treat the men's titles the same way. In this case, we got Chelsea Green, Zelina Vega, who are the two most recent U.S. title holders, Liv Morgan, who might just have to switch brands, and Naomi, who's putting in really, really good work as a heel right now. I've got a fatal four-way with those four names for the U.S. title. All right, next up, a match that I just want to see, a feud that I just want to see, Io Sky versus Asuka, because I think it'd be cool. They had one banger match on SmackDown like in 2023, and I think with Asuka's return, you could do a lot of really fun stuff with that. Apparently, she was like penciled in to be at WrestleMania this year. However, she's still not ready to go. And so you would think if they were penciling her in for WrestleMania this year, she's got to be kind of on the verge of coming back. So maybe over the next couple of months, she'll make her big return. And then you build a big program between her and Io Sky. I think this is just one of those matches the fans would love to see at WrestleMania. And I think it'd be really cool. All right, next up, we've got Jey Uso versus Rusev. Now, Rusev has come back, shades of the Redeemer character from AEW, but this time he's talking about people who have talent and they wasted it, kind of like he feels like he did. Well, if Jey Uso has a relatively short title reign as World Heavyweight Champion, maybe Rusev will target him next, and they'll have a big feud heading into next year's WrestleMania. I don't see Jey Uso carrying that title necessarily past SummerSlam. I've got bigger plans for the World Heavyweight Championship to elevate that title, because I think that's one thing WWE really needs to work on, is elevating that title. All right, next up, let's talk about the WWE Intercontinental Championship for the men. I've got Braun Breaker going back to that Intercontinental Championship, still as part of Seth Rollins' group, whatever they're going to end up calling that. And I've got Gunther challenging him for it. I know Gunther was just World Heavyweight Champion, but maybe he'll reassess and be like, hey, you know what? My glory days were for the Intercontinental Championship, so maybe I'll go back and fuck around with that. All right, let's talk about the men's United States Championship. Now, just like the women, I made this a multi-person match. I've got Ilya Dragunov, who comes back, maybe to SmackDown. I've got Jacob Fatu, who might hold that title for a very long time. Sami Zayn, who probably should take Seth Rollins up on the offer to go to SmackDown, or maybe he'll just move at the draft. Trick Williams, who has to get called up at the draft, you would think. He's kind of done everything in NXT. And LA Knight, who just had is coming off of a lengthy US title run. Well, not lengthy, and LA Knight, who's just coming off of a US title run after having lost to Jacob Fatu. So I don't know if I necessarily see LA Knight being elevated to the world title scene by next year's WrestleMania. He might dabble there or something now that John Cena has it and he's a bad guy. Maybe you'll put LA Knight in there with him at I don't know, a Saudi show or at a B-level premium live event. I don't know, sometime during the year. In any event, you got to put him somewhere on the card. So I have him firmly in that United States title scene, still in a 5-way match for that title. All right, now we've got a bunch of matches, all of which could be the main event. So let's start off with the Women's World Championship. I've got Becky Lynch versus Bayley, because that's the big feud going on, but it's going to be a multi-person match. So you got Becky Lynch versus Bayley versus Charlotte Flair, who'd have to switch brands. You got 3 horsewomen, and you got Jade Cargill in there, who impressed in her match against Tiffany Stratton at the Raw after Mania before they wonked that finish. But Jade Cargill at some point there, especially if she progresses in the ring, she's going to be elevated to title status. And I feel like a fatal 4-way with 4 of the 4 horsewomen and Jade Cargill could be a ton of fun. All right, next up for the Women's WWE Championship. This one is obvious as day. I know they're going to do it. It might be for the other title in reality, but in this situation, I've got Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair for the WWE Women's Championship. This could obviously main event. I feel like this is a story that they're going to take their time telling. At least I hope so. And it's going to be a big headlining match. All right, another match that could easily main event, and it's kind of a vehicle to elevate the World Heavyweight Championship. You gotta figure Seth Rollins being the new big bad guy there on Raw is going to at some point target probably Jey Uso to get that title back, with Seth Rollins holding it in this new faction. If they have him main eventing pay-per-views, then that is going to elevate that title to the point where you finally get in the main event, or a main event, a co-main event, whatever, at WrestleMania, Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns 1-on-1 for a title. Maybe they even do a career versus title match. Roman Reigns has said he only has a short amount of time left in wrestling, so maybe it's a situation where they'll do this match. Roman will be written off because he'll lose, and then he'll come back at the next WrestleMania or something. It's wrestling. You could do a career match, and then they go away, and they just get written back in somehow. Not a big deal. But you do Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. I feel like they need to have at least like a 2-match end of an era type series before Roman Reigns calls it a day and walks away from wrestling. And so this would be the first of that. The video packages for this will be epic because they've got so much history between them. And at the same time, you're elevating that World Heavyweight Championship because Roman Reigns never really seemed interested in that particular title. All right, we're down to our last 2 matches, but this could be a single match. So we got the WWE Championship. Now, it's been my prediction here at WrestleJuice that Drew McIntyre is going to have a huge 2025 leading into 2026. So much so that I think he will be carrying that WWE title. Maybe it's a situation where John Cena gets beat by Cody Rhodes. So Cody Rhodes gets that title back. Drew McIntyre, having won Money in the Bank, similar to how he did last year, but this year he doesn't fuck it up. He cashes in on Cody after that match and wins that title. Walks into next year's WrestleMania as the top champion. They need to push this guy as the next big bad guy because they got a Seth Rollins on one brand. They need a Drew McIntyre on the other brand. So who would be his challengers? Could be 1 or 2 people. You could do a triple threat where you get CM Punk winning the Rumble or the Chamber because he always talks about that stuff. He gets in the night 2 main event against Drew McIntyre. Or you could do Cody Rhodes and CM Punk in that main event there at Mania for the triple threat situation for the WWE title. That could also be a night 1 main event if you want to do Reigns versus Rollins as their like big headlining match. Or you could do the Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair. I don't know. It's not my job to say what's going to be the main event. In my mind, they're all main events. I'll be honest with you. What gets the main event is kind of an overrated thing anyways. Like, people remember the matches, not necessarily the order of which they're in. Like, everybody remembers Rock versus Hogan, not necessarily Triple H versus Chris. Anyways. Or you could do straight up CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre for the WWE title and Cody Rhodes versus The Rock for the People's Championship. I know, the last thing we probably all want to see is The Rock at WrestleMania, but goddamn it, last year at WrestleMania 40, he was so entertaining. And I honestly think The Rock might actually be done with WWE in general because it just seems like a mess. It's such a mess. But if they want to revisit the Cody Rhodes versus Rock stuff, they can actually do that as a match for that silly People's Championship that The Rock stole from the widow of Muhammad Ali. And then maybe Cody Rhodes can win that. And that'll be a title that he combines with the WWE title if he beats somebody for it. I don't know. At that point, it becomes kind of a mess. But that is my predictions, fantasy predictions, whatever, for WrestleMania 42. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Who did I miss? Who got left out? I didn't see any Finn Balor. Maybe he'll be in the Aleister Black group or something. Oh, also, I got a WrestleMania SmackDown match. The women's tag titles, Roxanne Perez and Julia versus Piper Niven and Alba Fire. Or something.